Hi, everyone. Again, our friends who are in the house and those who are in their houses and everywhere in the world listening to the word of God. And today, I am praying specially that the life of today's word will touch you, transform into health, and become life for you. I hinted last week that in our series on the anatomy of fear, today we're going to be talking on the fact that fear creates a self-made prison. And for that, we're going to be reading from the book of Numbers 13, 26 to 23. And I think I'm just going to touch about 3 or 4 points that have to do with this topic. Obviously, there's a lot that can be learned on this particular topic of self-made prison because of fear. I'm also very careful that as we're going through this series, that I'm not creating animals who think, well, boldness is what I'm talking about. And the reality is that if you are not fearful, then you trust in God. And if you trust in God, then you're a faithful person. I'm not saying that people should become brutish and go about and say, I fear nobody, and then you are actually manifesting fear instead. So let's go to the book of Numbers. This is the story of the 12 spies, the 10 who dissented, and the 2 who stayed on track with what God has said. Verse 26 began by saying, they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly, showing them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. This is the account. We went into the land to which you sent us. It does flow with milk and honey. Here is the fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there, the Amalekites in the Negev, the Hittite, the Jebusite, the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone with him said, we can't attack these people. They are stronger than we are. They spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. And all the people we saw there are great of size. We saw the Nephilims there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. It's very funny, when you just meditate on that last phrase, we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes. That's their own conclusion and assumption. But then watch the other part. And we looked the same to them. In other words, not only are we concluding for us, we are concluding for this presumably giants and supermen that didn't even know we exist. And it is the exact same thing when we fear. A little bit of the digression. I personally have aversion to people who unjustly assume that other people desire or want to do something with them. Not only do they assume this in their mind, they also assume for their victim, and thereby they go on a frantic journey of destruction because they're afraid. Oh, he wants to marry me. Oh, he wants to be with me. Well, do you have a concrete evidence? They don't have it. But it is an assumption that comes from so-called fear. Let me not bring my personal issues in, but let's go into the Word of God. God already told the Israelites the nature of the land they were going to take. God didn't say, you know what, go steal the land or just walk into it. No, he did not. He told them, he said, one, the land is very rich. Literally, its richness, its wealth is like a flow of milk and honey. God is saying everything you touch there is going to be sweet. Milk makes you grow. You're going to prosper by it. That land is a land that flows with milk and honey. And think of it. How many centuries have passed? Israel is still prospering. Isn't that ironic? Israel doesn't have any good land. If you have to choose a land to survive, Israel is not a place to choose. It's all rocky. It's seventh grade classification of soil, yet it is prospering and the people are prospering. That's what God was talking about. He's basically saying that promise that I'm giving you is not to be evaluated based upon what you see. It's not to be evaluated based upon what you can feel. It must be accepted based upon my word. And this is important for saints today. Oh, my husband is not like Pastor Tony. Of course, Pastor Tony is superhuman. But if God gives you your husband, you better take him as God has given him to you. Don't try to justify your action based upon what you see or what you don't see. This was one of the failures of Israel. And saints, I tell you, this is one of the failures of saints, that when God presents us with certain options, we already have a preconceived way of perceiving and receiving that blessing in such a way that we cannot see or understand what God is saying. So Israel failed in this first place. Secondly, God said it is a land that is full of all sorts of human resources. He said, I'm going to give you a land that all the houses have been made. All you need to do is move into it. There's going to be fruits that will prosper in that place. And you will agree with me that that place is still prospering today. The land was already developed. Israel did not have to pioneer anything. So all they need to do was to move in. And a lot of the times, this is exactly what God is saying to us as saying, just move in, take what I've given you and take off from there because I have already prepared everything for you. And God knew the type of people on the land. He knew they were warriors. He knew they were giants, people who were seasoned in battle. But let me tell you what is so interesting about this. In the eyes of God, he sees those people as dead meat. God wasn't seeing all those powerful warriors as people who will contend with him. He saw them as dead meat. Now, can you imagine somebody who thinks because they have some high-tech weaponry, they can fight against God? Well, that's only if you will have the opportunity to get to use your weapon, because God can switch off this fuse of your life. It's exactly what is happening here. That's why when God was talking to the Israelite, he was saying, what do you think? Do you think that you are the one killing your enemies? I was among you, chopping down your enemies. And I want us to also understand today that if God said that to Israel, he's saying that to you and I, that he's the one chopping down our mountains, our enemies. And our simple responsibility today is to take God and his promise for what they are. And I like you to hear this, my friends, because I know some of us, those of you who may not be physically here with me and those who are here, you may be like, oh, Lord, I wonder what I have messed up. I wonder what I have not accepted from you. But this is why it is important. These things that I've just said are so important because they all tie to the character of God as being faithful and all-powerful. Everything I just enumerated, it was God saying to the Israelites, I have solved the problem. Oh yes, my skin still twitches, but I have been healed. It's not the twitch that's your problem. It's now that God said, I have healed you. Go and live your life. A lot of people don't live their lives because they allow certain visible symptoms to become their burden when God has already intervened for them. And not taking this into account exposes every and any individual to your own strength. The moment you begin to evaluate God's promises as opposed to the very reality that you can see and feel and touch, what you do is that you have eliminated the place of God as being powerful, as being faithful, as being almighty, and exposing the next space of your life to yourself. You now put you, I in that place. Hey, and when I look at myself, I see so many limitations. And this is what I want you to see. Nobody will kill you if you eliminate God and put yourself in the place. But the reality is this: you are not enough. Number two, your not being enough gives birth to the most troubling thing. Guys, gives birth to fear. I'd like you to please catch this picture. Your not being enough that eliminates the almighty and all-able God puts you in the place and you get pregnant and give birth to fear. That's where your fear begins from. I'd like you to hear this. Of course, if an amateur wants to fight a professional, take somebody off of the street and you say, go fight Mike Tyson when he was age 22, a super mean professional boxer who has been tested and has been found formidable. Except some schemes have been put in place. Any amateur or attempting to fight Tyson would only discover their weakness and give birth to fear and self-doubt. Now, hear what I said. Except some schemes have been played on Tyson. And if a man tells you, we have fixed Tyson, no matter what brolo or punches he throws at you, you will take him down. We give you that assurance. If you refuse or choose not to believe them, you can only find yourself giving birth to fear. And God is telling Israel, I have fixed the land of Canaan. I have fixed the giants, the Amalekite, the Jebusite, the relatives of the Nephilims. I have fixed it. I have fixed the agriculture. I have fixed the economy. All you need to do is step in and take it. This is what God's scheme is all about. When God puts a scheme in a place, this is what I want you to hear. It does not matter who the warrior or the professional is. It does not matter who the problem is. Any warrior can be unraveled. I promise you. There is no warrior that cannot be unraveled. Any wise man, Ahithophel was supposed to be super wise. Well, when God turned his own wisdom against him, that is God's scheme. He killed himself. The so-called Solomon, who wrote all the wisdoms that we have, he unraveled because he didn't trust God and chose all those beautiful women out of the commonwealth of God. And it's so interesting. When God chooses to unravel something and tells us, just go take it, our choice is not to know what he's going to do. We must predicate our action on the fact that he's an almighty, all-powerful, and all-able God. Because he made them. And when he's done with them, God can dispose of them. That's what I want you to hear. Who made the giants? They didn't make themselves. God made them. Who made the Jebusites, the Amorites, all of them? God made them. And when God says, I have cut their fuses, you better trust God. They may be giants, they may be trained warriors. He made all of them. And when God is ready to deal with them, they will be unraveled. There is no mountain that can stand before God because God is higher than every mountain. I'd like to talk to you quickly about a lack of trust. When we refuse to trust God, we end up giving birth to our own prison and condemnation. And I cannot tell you how many saints are in self-made prison and condemnation. Now, the difference is that there are different grades of prison. There are light prisons, there are short-term prisons, there are long-term prisons, and there are like seriously unbelievable prison. The degree to which we distrust God will determine how big the prison we create for ourselves will be. I was talking to a person of prayer, and the person reminded me of somebody, and he said, man, that man needs severe deliverance, because you can tell that he lives in a self-made prison and condemnation. Let us see the report of the Israelites. Hear them. We went into the land to which you sent us. We obeyed. Actually, it flows with milk and honey, as you said. To prove that you, God, you are right, here is the fruit. Guys, look at it. Here's the fruit. It flows with milk and honey. You said so, God. Actually, let us prove ourselves that you are right. Here are the fruits. But we must add to what we are showing you today. The people who live there are powerful. It's also the truth. The cities are fortified and very large. That's one part that as I was reading it, God was not sending them to some desert area where their enemies can capture them easily. He was sending them to a fortified city that's very large, so that when the enemies come, it will be hard to overcome. So that actually what was designed to be an advantage has now become what they see as disadvantage, because they do not have faith. We saw descendants of Anak there. That's true. The Amalekites live there in Negev. That's true. The Hittite, the Jebusite, the Amorites all live in hill countries. And the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan. All true. But hear this. But we seemed like grasshopper in our own eyes. That's their own conjecture. I seem like a grasshopper every time I see Pastor Tony or his blessings. Why is that my problem? You are the one that is conjecturing. And we look the same to them. Isn't that ironic? Not only you think you look like a grasshopper, you are now presuming that I am thinking of the same grasshopper nature for you when I don't even know you exist. Isn't that sad? Now, their observation was true. Everything they saw, except that they concluded on their own, and that is how they felt like grasshopper in their own eyes. The moment they came to this conclusion, they literally constructed their own prisons. Everybody needs to kind of slow down here and find out what conjecture. I've seen children, literally, this is not even some ephemeral thinking or some passing thinking. It's real. My parents don't love me. Did they tell you? No. Then how did you get to that conclusion? I just think the way they act. Well, why don't you put into context the relationship you've had since you grew up to age 20, 21, age 18? Make a list. Make a list. Oh, yes, I know. They sent you to school. Well, that's nothing. They just wasted 300,000 on you. Oh, well, the bought us clothes. Well, every kid must buy them clothes. Anyway, didn't they give birth to me? Well, they fed you for 20 years. Well, but you still came to the conclusion that they don't love you. I don't know how many people invest in the people they don't love. But that's a lot of the way that saints behave in their relationship with God. But the problem is this: the moment you conclude this way, you have built your own self-made prison. And one big reason, this is it, that the church has failed with evangelistic mandates is because of what? Fear. We have given all sorts of excuses. The church of Christ is breaking and splitting 20 times over because the church is super saturated with people that are bored. Everybody is rotating somebody's church member rather than the church investing in evangelistic outreach and fulfilling the mandate of Jesus Christ. The pain, the unanswered prayers, the need to be relevant to the modern scientific world, the fear of persecution. I remember one time I was teaching and I got a text online and somebody said, Pastor Tony, I know you're a scientist, but as a practicing scientist, I have to tell you that your position on the seventh day, sixth-day creation is wrong. So I wrote back, I said, it is true. I am not practicing as a scientist, but I can affirm that the word of God is trustworthy. I can believe it. Because they think they know everything. The fear of persecution and even the very possibility of death have all led to this fear in the church. Oh, why do you want to go to mission? You're going to be poor. Why do you want to go to the mission? What if they chop off your head? You're going to go to the mission. Watch out for the diseases and the worms. As if Americans are not body-ridden with worms in their brains. I like to say it this morning that the problem we are facing in the church is all because we don't trust God. And when you don't trust God, you put yourself in the place of God and your body tells you you are limited and you will give birth to fear. Let's look at self-made prisons, how they look like when we make them. Unfortunately, there will always be a consequence to our fear. And these are the few things I want to add to this teaching today. Number one, when we create our own self-made prison, we restrict ourselves from displaying our perfection and our destiny. There's a restriction to the display of our perfection and destiny. Once you create your own prison, you have restricted yourself. And one of the sad things about the prison is that it is intentionally, in normal life, prisons are intentionally designed to restrict the prisoner from anything that will give him or her comfort from being a human being. It does not matter what skill the person has or who the person is. Once you are found guilty, you will be restricted from the freedom of life. That's what prison is designed for. Now, these 10 spies, they lost the opportunity to go back to the land they concluded made them look like grasshoppers. That's the first thing that happened. Why would God allow them to go back to the land that they claim make them look like grasshopper. Why? So they can blame God. Well, it is the wife you gave me. Well, it is you, your fault, who brought us to Canaan. Why didn't you leave us in Egypt? God would not allow that to happen. And so the first thing that happens is when we start to doubt God and fear goes into our heart and we create prison, God will say, I permit you, do what you have just created. Enter into your own self-made prison. As saints, I like to put it like this. We need to be aware of this reality of what our fear creates. It creates our own prison because it accuses God of an unfair demand from us, even though we know the truth. Well, it's the woman you gave me. Well, it's the parents you made me. Well, it's because you got me born in this part of the world. Every time we do that accusation, we are blaming him. And he would allow you enjoy the bed of your own self-made prison. You know, Jesus said it through John. He said that this water of life, God will not force anybody to drink from it. He will not compel anybody. You must willingly come to it because it's not like the devil. So the 10 spies lost the opportunity to enter the land because they concluded that that land made them look like grasshopper. As saints, we need to be aware of this reality. Just for this moment, as you and I are talking, are you in a self-made prison? Are you? And there are so many symptoms. There are so many symptoms and signs. That's not my goal for today. Number 2, once we create our prison, our vision, our perception become distorted. It's like you're crazy. You don't even know what you're doing. I am told by those who came out of the prison, most of you know I worked with prisoners for a long time, that have been in the prisons for so many years, and suddenly they are released. There's something that usually strikes them. They are always surprised at the change they see in the outside world. These prisoners always say they thought that the world remained the same as they have it in their mind. And so when they suddenly came out, it's a different world. And I know why. Because the last image they had was what sustained them all through while they were in the prison. But while they were in the prison, the reality changed. And so when they came out, the world has become so changed and different. And it's become intimidating for them. Believe it or not, some choose to go back to prison because they could not cope with the reality that is outside. Their minds have been distorted. And much in the same way, does the prison we create provoke distortion of perception in us? Everything around you wants to kill you. Everybody around you wants evil for you. Everybody around you wants to use you, wants to take from you because of fear. Fear provokes distortion in our thinking, in our perception, and in our mind. If you look at it, a lot of people who are insufferable as members of the church, who have been afflicted by self-made fear, they are very, very dangerous people. Because their self-made prison has provoked such a decadence in their mind that they are so sure that somebody in their church wants something from them. These spies have seen the Red Sea split. Yes or no? They saw it. They had been fed from the sky. I mean, who has seen it? You know, pasta, rigoli, pizza, falling from the sky, and every day without you providing or working for it. Rocks making them pure water when they needed it. They had seen the pillar of God's fire and his cloud as evidence of his promise forever. They have seen so many miracles, yet they did not trust God because of their own fear. Remember what I said. When you don't trust God, it's because you eliminate God's position and put yourself there. And once you put yourself in that position, yourself will only give you the analysis, your limitation. And your limitation obviously will make you give birth to fear, and fear will give birth to your own prison. And the reality is this: the consequence of their distorted perception of God's power and faithfulness is that their imagination became decadent and distorted. What you see today in the body of Christ is a decadent way of perceiving God, and there's a distortion on what to believe. I've seen some guy, literally, he said, Pastor Tony, nothing will move me. Even if the dead was raised, the sick was healed, and all the crippled in the world were healed, I will not be moved. And in my soul, I just said, you're done for. You are done for. Because your fear of maybe you may not be used to do such a thing has led you to this place. Number 3 thing that comes when we are bound by our fear in prison, our God-given destiny may be lost. I'd like you to hear this. Our God-given destiny. I like to kind of say this about marriage. I have seen young men that when you're looking at them, you could have said to them, or maybe you told them, maybe you don't go that route. They still go that route. Fast forward a few years, you begin to see terror in that marriage. The idea of God's blessing is not supposed to bring sorrow. But because people have chosen not to trust in God, they create their own self-made prison, and their destiny is at risk. Because of their fear, the Israelites, God swore that they would not be allowed to enter the promised land. Isn't that the irony? We want to enter the land, but we are kicking against it. And God said, okay, I'm not going to let you enter. Verse 20 of Numbers 13, hear this. Just hear this, because this really has to do with every individual saint's life and choice. The Lord replied to Moses, I have forgiven them. Moses was weeping and begging because God said, let me wipe them out. I have forgiven them as you asked. Nevertheless, as surely as I live, and as surely as the glory of God fills the whole earth, no one of those who saw my glory and the signs I performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, so somebody doesn't say Pastor Tony wrote it, but who disobeyed me and tested me 10 times, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. Destiny lost. No one who has tested me with contempt will see it, because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly. I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Now, verse 20 to 24. This is so grieving to the soul. Grieving. Oftentimes, parents don't trust God with their children. They're afraid their kids will be stolen, they won't become rich, they won't become popular, they'll die. They will not be able to ride Mercedes class, Bentley, and have big houses. They will not be able to show off gold and their plastic boobs and plastic breasts and Botox cheeks and all. And so they choose not to train those children for God because they know they will follow God's ways. But hear this. Although, verse 20, we are God's children, yet it is possible not to live our lives. It is very possible. The reason is this. I want you to hear verse 26. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, how long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the complaints of this grumbling Israelite. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very things I heard you say. In the wilderness, your bodies will fall, every one of your 20-year-old or more who was counted in the census and who has grunted against me. Not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. Now, hear the big part. Verse 31. As for your children that you said will be taken away as plunder. A lot of the times, there's a secret bitterness that ministers have towards God. It's because of God I'm suffering. I better not encourage these children to come to ministry. And I'm not saying this, I'm saying this from first-hand knowledge. It says like this, your children will be taken as plunders, the very thing you are running from. I will bring them in to enjoy the land you have rejected. But as for you, your bodies will fall in this wilderness. And now, hear the sad part. But as for you, your years, suffering for your unfaithfulness, your children will be shepherds here for 40 years in the wilderness. They will be suffering in that wilderness. And for 40 years, for each year, for the 40 days you explore the land, you have spoken, I will surely do this thing. But see the way he concluded it, until the last of your bodies lie in the wilderness. The very same thing that they were worried about. And this is the sad reality. It is sad because our thoughts may lead us to our consequences. Your fear will lead you to your own consequence. They were afraid of dying in the wilderness. Therefore, they chose not to trust God or his promises. Sadly, that is exactly what God gave them. But not just them, the very children they thought they were concerned for became victims of their unbelief. In a way, our fear does not only influence us, it can influence our children and our children's children. Some might say today, Pastor Tony, are we not in the dispensation of grace? I will say a very big and resounding yes. Yes, we are. Yet, we know that grace will not grow when sin continues. Fear is unbelief, and unbelief is sin. I'd like you today to please take to heart today's teaching and evaluate your life. It's time to straighten the weak limbs and reach out with our hands again to the Lord and say, Father, I'm ready to get out of my self-made prison. There are so many factors that can provoke it. Like I said, that's not my goal. My goal today is you better know that fear creates a self-made prison. I'm not saying brutish. If you go crazy, I will not follow, I will not align, you are disobedient. You still are doing the same thing I'm preaching. The truth of what I'm saying is trust in the Lord, commit your ways unto his hand, and I promise you at the right time, he will lift you up. May the Lord richly bless you. And this week, I pray it will be for you a week of freedom. Let all those prison walls break down and bring you out of the dungeon into God's light. In Jesus' precious and mighty name. I'd like to pray for somebody who may be in self-made prison, but have been provoked by others, maybe by abuse, maybe by rejection, maybe by neglect or whatever. I pray today that you would experience God's deliverance as the light of the Lord touched Peter and the chains fell and the gates lifted. May the light of God touch you today. May you experience deliverance. May your prison's wall fall. May you see and come out of your dungeon and see the horizon and the way to your freedom in Jesus' name. And those who love Jesus will say,